Tonight on NewsWatch, Detroit's debt. It's not an isolated case in America. What America's cities can learn as the Motor City struggles to survive.
Plus, an amazing survival. She's hit by a semi on a bridge, plunged into the water below, and lives to tell her amazing story.
And fueling America. It's a natural gas resource that could help solve America's energy needs. But is the government needlessly hampering production? All this and more tonight on NewsWatch. Good evening, everyone. I'm George Thomas.
And I'm Wendy Griffith. Before we get to our top story, breaking news tonight out of London.
Yeah.
Baby news.
Baby news.
This is big news. It's a boy, George. The people are celebrating Kate. The British Duchess of Cambridge gave birth to a baby Monday evening in London. All of Britain had waited to get word on the latest heir to the British throne. The boy will be third in line to the crown after Prince Charles and the baby's daddy, Prince William. Both Londoners and tourists gathered outside the same hospital where William was born to Charles and Diana 31 years ago. Hard to believe. It's the first time in more than a century that 3 generations of royalty were on hand to witness such a birth, and that has fans of the royals in a dither.
I'm excited. I'm like a washing machine. I'm spinning. I'm on full spin. I've never been so dry in my life. I feel like I'm on holiday as well, and I'm really excited. I'm just so pleased to hear the news.
That's fabulous. Will and Kate's son is a strapping, get this, 8 pounds, 6 ounces. Very healthy.
Yeah.
Both mother and baby are said to be doing well. George and I are both wearing blue in honor of the baby boy.
We're all in 4 spins, I guess, right? Excited.
That's fantastic.
Well, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Okay, moving on now. A federal judge blocks Detroit's bankruptcy for now. So what's next for this major American city drowning in debt? Other cities struggling with the same problem are keeping a very close eye. CBN's Charlene Israel has tonight's top story.
When a city as large as Detroit fails, it doesn't happen overnight.
I mean, a lot of this debt, a lot of the practices that I put forward in my June 14th report that talked about deferrals, unfunded obligations, borrowings, addiction to debt, even a level of corruption from 2002 to 2008, which was significant, have created this problem.
Emergency manager Kevin Orr was hired back in March to fix Detroit's debt problem. He warned then that there was a 50-50 chance of a bankruptcy filing. Now that warning is a reality.
We don't have a choice. We've crossed the Rubicon on the level. We have 18 to 19 billion dollars in debt and no funding mechanism for it. So this is a question of necessity.
Public pensions are one of the city's major problems. Detroit has 18,000 retired public workers who are still owed pension and health benefits. But the funding for that program is under by about $3.5 billion. Governor Rick Snyder says enough is enough. He says retiree pensions have hampered state and city budgets. Now it's time for public workers to pay more of their health care costs. And it turns out Detroit is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to cities in financial danger. A Pew survey shows that 61 major cities across the nation are in similar circumstances. The Detroit Free Press points out they share a $217 billion shortfall. That comes from unfunded pension and health care liabilities. It's not clear if any of them will take the same step as Detroit. But Detroit Mayor Dave Bing says he hopes their bankruptcy filing will be a new start.
Detroit is a very iconic city worldwide, and our people will fight through this, and we will come back.
The mayor doesn't expect much help in the way of bailout money from the federal government. Both Bing and Governor Snyder say Detroit created their money problems, and now it's up to them to find a way out.
I've gotten great support from this administration. I've got great support from a lot of the different departments within the administration. They've been helpful. But now that we've done our bankruptcy filing, I think we've got to take a step back and see what's next.
Charlene Israel, CBN News.
William was not like... More on Detroit is Bill Frezza, a Boston-based venture capitalist and a fellow at the Competitive Enterprise Institute. So, Bill, is bankruptcy filing a good thing or bad thing for Detroit?
Recognizing reality is always a good thing. There's an opportunity now for the markets and the courts to get things right. It's going to be painful for a lot of people, but continuing to kick the can and deny reality can only lead Detroit towards what we're seeing in Greece.
President Obama bailed out GM. Do you think this time he'll try to bail out the entire city of Detroit as well?
That gets problematic. There were only three car companies that were of the statute of a bailout. Only two got the bailout. There are hundreds of cities queuing up for municipal bankruptcies. If they open the doors to federal money now, there's no end to it. I think it's very unlikely to see a large-scale federal bailout in Detroit.
So what do you think would be the best way to jumpstart Detroit and getting it moving ahead?
I actually think this bankruptcy is a tremendous opportunity. With a stroke of the pen, they can change so many things in this country. All they have to do is suspend the federal income tax within the city limits of Detroit and suspend the federal labor laws within the city limits of Detroit. The idea being any income earned by individuals or corporations inside the city limit for 15 years would be tax-free at the federal level, and only state and city labor regulations would have to be followed. If they took that course, Detroit would be Hong Kong in 10 years.
I mean, that sounds amazing. Do you think that that will fly, that that's something that the city has the appetite for?
I think the city would have the appetite for it. The question is, would Obama and the Congress have courage to try that experiment?
Yeah, more than 60 other major cities face huge debt burdens as well. Do you think any of them will heed the Detroit lesson and tackle their own pension problems and perhaps eliminate the possibility of their cities facing a Detroit scenario?
It's too late for most of them. If you look at the dollars in the operating budget that are going to legacy costs in so many of these cities, there's no way to turn them around. And so they might be able to slow things down, but there's got to be a reckoning, and both municipal bondholders and pensioners have to take a haircut. Okay.
Bill Frezza with the Competitive Enterprise Institute. As always, sir, thank you for joining us on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Famed neurosurgeon Dr. Ben Carson is weighing in on the race debate following the George Zimmerman not guilty verdict. Carson is encouraging the country to tone down the rhetoric and to realize we are not each other's enemies.
So often we take any kind of situation that occurs today in America and we get on the different sides of it and we hurl hand grenades at each other rather than engaging in intelligent discussion. This is what we need to do. Do we have a perfect system? Absolutely not. Does everybody think about things the right way? Absolutely not. But we're never going to get there if we continue to make ourselves into enemies.
Rallies calling for justice for Trayvon Martin continued across the nation over the weekend. Meanwhile, reports of George Zimmerman helping rescue a family from an overturned vehicle last week in the Orlando area have been confirmed.
Well, it's a miraculous survival tale. An 18-wheeler smashed into a woman's car on the Chesapeake Bay Bridge, sending it over the wall and into the water 40 feet below. Now she's speaking out about the accident and how God gave her the strength to survive.
A devastating car crash and a terrifying plunge. That's what happened to Morgan Lake the moment an 18-wheeler slammed into the back of her car on the Chesapeake Bay Bridge. Amazingly, she's now the one telling her story.
I saw my car explode with glass everywhere and airbags coming at me full force.
The force of the impact sent Lake's 2007 Chrysler over the wall of the bridge and into the Chesapeake Bay 40 feet below.
My eyes were closed, my mouth filled up with water really fast. I got one good screaming and I started to drown. I felt like my whole body was getting filled up with water. And I stopped shaking and said, I don't want to drown. I don't want to die.
The 22-year-old was able to reach down and unbuckle her seatbelt. She then pushed through her already broken car window and swam to the surface. Bleeding, Lake was able to reach a pile of rocks to wait for her rescuers.
I felt my whole left side not working. It was in a lot of pain. And I've managed to use my right side to shimmy my way up onto the rocks as much as I could. And then I heard somebody yell, "Stay there, help is coming."
Lake was flown to the Maryland Shock Trauma Center in Baltimore. Miraculously, her only injuries were a sprained ankle and some bumps and bruises.
I'm just blessed to be here, blessed to get a second chance at life.
Lake went on to say that with God, anybody can be their own Superman or Superwoman. Caitlin Burke, CBN News.
Incredible story. Well, two accidents at two separate amusement parks have people wondering about the safety of the rides. A woman fell 14 stories to her death from a roller coaster at Six Flags over Texas. Witnesses say she'd complained that her restraint wasn't secure when she got on the ride. And in Ohio, at Cedar Point, 7 people were hurt on the log flume ride. Their boat rolled back and flipped upside down in the water.
Overseas now, at least 75 people are dead after 2 powerful earthquakes hit rural China today. It injured more than 400 people and destroyed thousands of homes. The 6.6 quake hit more than 760 miles west of Beijing. Scientists say it was so destructive because it struck only 12 miles below the surface. Rock and mudslides are making it very difficult for rescue teams to reach the area. No deaths reported after a 6.9 earthquake hit Wellington, New Zealand Sunday. The capital city still felt aftershocks this morning. Residents of a nearby town reported minor damage to their homes and businesses. A series of quakes hit Christchurch, New Zealand back in 2011, killing 185 people and destroying much of the city's downtown.
Kirk Cameron says his latest movie, Unstoppable, can't be stopped. The 42-year-old Growing Pains star told his fans that Facebook and YouTube had blocked his movie trailer, calling it abusive, unsafe, and spammy. More than 250,000 people reposted Cameron's comments, and Facebook and YouTube have now put the movie trailer back up. The movie focuses on why God allows bad things to happen to good people. And you can find a link to that trailer and more details on the movie at cbnnews.com.
Coming up on the broadcast, meeting America's energy demands right here at home. Good news for the process, but will it be enough to convince the government? A new study shows fracking doesn't hurt the environment. Fracking is a process for getting natural gas from deep down below the ground. It's become more easier, more efficient way to create energy, but environmentalists say it's dangerous to drinking water. However, the study shows that the toxic chemicals used to get the natural gas out of the ground stayed a full mile below the drinking water supply. The study went on for a year in the Pittsburgh area.
Well, despite this new study, the debate over fracking will most likely continue. Many energy analysts say natural gas is one of the brightest hopes for America's energy future, but there are still some naysayers. Mark Martin has the story.
The New York Times reports that hundreds of industry emails, internal documents, and data analysis from thousands of wells show drilling for natural gas in shale rock may not be as successful as drilling companies claim. The newspaper says documentation shows the natural gas may be more difficult and expensive to extract, and the wells less productive than what industry leaders are reporting.
Our drillers can control this within inches.
Matt Pizzarella disagrees. He works for Range Resources, a company drilling in the Marcellus Shale Formation in Pennsylvania. He says Range, like other energy firms, is increasing its natural gas production target because of an abundant supply. Trillions of cubic feet of natural gas are believed to be trapped in the Marcellus Shale, and recent advances in drilling technology are freeing the gas from its rock prison. Drilling companies say they're getting better at removing it all the time and getting more natural gas from each well than originally anticipated.
We're entering a golden age of natural gas right now. We were on a one-way ticket to becoming just as dependent on liquefied natural gas from Russia as we are on imported oil from the Middle East and other parts of the world. We now have a 200-year supply of natural gas and growing in the United States of America.
Chesapeake Energy Corporation is another example of a company reporting better than expected results in the Marcellus. Chesapeake now predicts that each well will yield more than 7 billion cubic feet of natural gas over its lifespan, more than double the original estimate. However, potential productivity isn't the only issue raising the eyebrows of skeptics.
The Marcellus Shale drilling boom is not below the surface when it comes to controversy. In fact, its regulation is the subject of debate by lawmakers here at the state capitol in Harrisburg. The natural gas industry is also on the radar of environmental groups who are concerned about the impact of the drilling on the water, air, and landscape.
Yet, in spite of the doubters, there is common ground. Both environmental groups and industry leaders are quick to share how natural gas burns more cleanly than coal and oil, producing less emissions. Mark Martin, CBN News, Pennsylvania.
Up next, the shot heard around the Muslim world. But what if it was all a hoax?
Hello? Is this thing on? Hey, kids, do you love games? And do you love discovering things? Well, do ya?
Then you're gonna love this. It's the new free Superbook Kids Bible app. You can play games, watch videos, find answers to your questions, and a whole lot more. The new Superbook Kids Bible app. Free downloads available on iTunes now.
The story on French TV was that Israeli soldiers shot and killed a boy in the Gaza Strip. There was just one problem. It's almost certainly false.
That was back in 2000, and the battle over it and its resulting wave of violence isn't done yet. Dale Hurd brings us an update from Paris.
In 2000, a Palestinian boy named Mohammed al-Dura was allegedly killed by Israeli soldiers during a gun battle in the Gaza Strip. The incident was shown on the nightly news in France on the channel France 2. The video by correspondent Charles Anderlin ignited rage across the Muslim world. It became a recruiting tool by Al-Qaeda, and it was used to justify the beheading of American journalist Daniel Pearl. But the video, shot by a Palestinian cameraman, has been dismissed by many journalists and experts as a fake. They say the Israelis could not have killed the boy as shown in the video. Any bullets fired by the Israelis could have only traveled like this. The 2 bullets seen hitting the wall in the France 2 video came from the Palestinian position. Further, the boy was supposedly hit with 3 high-velocity bullets and the father with 12. That should have done significant damage, but there was no blood on their bodies or on the wall behind them. And on the raw footage of the gun battle, we see the boy, after he's supposed to be dead, peeking out from under his arm. We also know that the Palestinians are famous for staging faked injuries and death in order to gain international sympathy. Here's a would-be actor pretending to be a victim of the Israelis. Philippe Carsanti, deputy mayor in the Paris suburb of Neuilly, says he, like the others, believed the al-Dura video at first and then saw the evidence that it was fake.
I went to the France 2 office. I went everywhere to ask him, but please correct the news. Nobody wanted to listen to me.
So Carsanti began a public campaign to spread the word that the video was a hoax, and he was sued by France 2 for defamation. A few weeks ago, after years of court battles, Carsanti finally lost. One of the first questions that needs to be asked, says an American author living in Paris, is why a TV network would sue a viewer simply for complaining that a story isn't true. Nidra Poller is writing a book about the al-Dura affair.
In a democratic country, citizens watched a news report, saw that was visibly fake, which you can see today anytime you look at it, and they said it was a fake. That you don't take people to court for that. And what they did was they took 3 people to court thinking that they had 3 small fries. They got fooled because Philippe Carsanti wasn't a small fry, and he fought back.
The al-Dura affair would become much more than just about whether a boy's death was real or fake. Mohammed al-Dura is now a religious and cultural icon in the Muslim world. His image adorns postage stamps. His name is on statues and buildings. He became another reason to hate and kill Jews. The al-Dura affair may have started as sloppy journalism, but Jews say it has become a modern-day blood libel, where Jews are falsely accused of killing children.
The image of the Israelis as a killer of children was really reinforced, strikingly, very strongly reinforced by this broadcast.
Richard Proskyr is the former head of France's National Council of Jews. In 6 years as leader, he was never once invited to speak about the controversy on French TV.
I'm French. I want to see in my country freedom of expression, possibility of expressing different views, and not to be blacklisted.
The al-Dura affair is both about the French media's view of Israel as a bully in the Middle East and about how the French government and media tend to operate like an exclusive club where the members protect one another. After Carsanti won the case on appeal, France's Supreme Court stepped in last year and threw out the decision.
It's kind of a mafia.
The French establishment decided long ago to circle the wagons and defend France 2 and the Aldura report. And whether the report was true or not seemed to become secondary.
Carsanti, he's right, but that's not the point.
Anne-Elisabeth Moutet is a French conservative and writes for the London Telegraph.
French civilization, as opposed to an Anglo-Saxon civilization, you do not apologize for a mistake because that is an admission of weakness. It becomes a question of honor and it doesn't become a question of facts.
Does the system want to protect France too in this? And why is
the
that?
French are pro-establishment by nature.
So what really happened to Mohamed Aldura?
To be honest, nobody has found the 20-something boy on a beach in Gaza. And that would really change things.
The Israeli government and some forensic experts say he had to have been killed by Palestinian fire or some other way. France 2 correspondent Charles Onderlin told CBN News he still believes Mohamed Aldura was killed by Israeli fire. But he added, "I reject and condemn the way terrorists used my report." Having finally beaten Philippe Carsanti in court, the attorney for France 2 and reporter Charles Onderlin said specifically that the court punished an attack on her client's honor. So the French justice system has enshrined in a legal victory what some say amounts to a blood libel against Israel and the Jews, giving Muslims one more reason to kill Israelis and Americans. But France 2 and the French establishment still have their honor. Dale Hurd, CBN News, Paris.
And finally on the show today, Pope Francis has returned to South America today to celebrate World Youth Day in Brazil.
Yeah, tens of thousands of Catholic youth are in Rio de Janeiro, taking in the sights and picking up their event gear. The week-long celebration includes a huge outdoor mass on Thursday. Workers have cleared a field the size of 7 football fields to accommodate the big crowd. This is Pope Francis's first international trip since becoming Pope. The former cardinal from Argentina hopes to re-energize the Catholic Church in Brazil, where evangelical churches are growing stronger.
Yeah, it's a big story for those
good news
in Brazil.
Never been there. Love to go.
No. Well, that's all for this week's edition of NewsWatch.
We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.